Welcome to It Starts With Mom. If you know, you know. And we know every day, March of Dimes fights for the health of all moms and babies. Today, we're talking about what you need to know after the baby arrives. I'm Stacey Skryzak. I'm a TV journalist, writer, and motivational speaker, but my proudest moment is I am a mom to a 22-weeker surviving triplet, as well as a rainbow baby. So I'm so excited to be here with you and to get a lot of good insight for after the baby arrives. It's wonderful to be joining other moms today. Moms need a community to lean on, people to turn to listen and support us. You know, we can't do it alone and we shouldn't have to. March of Dimes is there for women at every stage of motherhood, even when things don't go according to plan. It Starts With Mom is a great resource for moms and moms to be and their families to help them along the way through pregnancy and beyond. There's so much we feel like we need to know, but it's impossible to know everything. That's why we need to lean on each other. And like they say, if you know, you know. And we know that to have a healthy baby and family and communities, it all starts with mom. Well, speaking of what we need to know, we're looking forward to this third fireside chat with Angelina Spicer, stand up comedian, actress, and outspoken advocate for maternal mental health after her diagnosis and hospitalization of postpartum depression, as well as Dr. Elizabeth Shiro. She's Senior Vice President and Chief Medical and Health Officer who leads the March of Dimes Office of Maternal and Child Health Impact. We'll start talking about our motherhood journeys and what we wish we'd like to know when we started those journeys. Well, this is the third of a three-part series focusing on putting moms first. So make sure to check out our other episodes on when we talk about what you need to know pre-pregnancy as well as during pregnancy. I'm so excited to get this conversation started. So let's get started because no matter what today brings, it starts with mom.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
I am so excited to be here today with Dr. Elizabeth Shiro. She is Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Health Officer leading March of Dimes, the Office of Maternal and Child Health Impact. And then you might recognize her. We've got Angelina Spicer, not only a stand-up comedian and actress, but this is my favorite term, accidental advocate, because she is doing so much for so many women, for mothers everywhere. So we have a really important conversation. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. All right. So we just had a baby. And what do you do? Especially the first time parents, you've got that scary, you don't know, there is no normal. Angelina, it's really started for you, that postpartum journey in the hospital. It's not once you get home, it's actually before that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny you ask because most people forget that the postpartum journey is once the baby gets here. That's immediately when they hand the baby over to you is when the postpartum period starts. And the postpartum period is 12 months long. Postpartum doesn't necessarily mean postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. It's just the period after the baby's here. And for me, postpartum and depression and anxiety kicked in right away. It was like, here's the baby, welcome to postpartum depression and anxiety. The only thing is that I didn't know that that's what I was experiencing. I got home from the hospital, my husband and I, and, between the sleepless nights and learning breastfeeding and understanding, communicating with my new baby and her understanding her body and how her body functions, but not knowing how to communicate. It was just all a big mess. And it was postpartum depression and anxiety that I learned that I had after. And, it just, for me, it started right away.
And we are going to get back into that. And I want to hear a lot more about how you have become this accidental advocate, because you are doing some amazing things for women everywhere. Dr. Shiro, I want to ask you about that experience for these new moms that might be watching, or moms that have already had children, because as we all know, if you have multiple children, each pregnancy is different. Each child is different. It's very scary, and there is no normal. So what should parents look out for, moms look out for?
There's so much, right? So Angelina is spot on. Babies put usually right on you at birth, hopefully through a vaginal delivery, but oftentimes right in C-section rooms. And, you're undergoing surgery, or really, right, having a coconut through the chute, as I like to say. And then you've got someone else to care for while you're taking care of yourself. So you're figuring out feeding, you're figuring out, changing diapers, trying to figure, choices and delivery, and it's overwhelming. And then all of a sudden you're sleepless. That's a form of torture we use, right? So I say that to moms all the time, and you're feeling unsettled, you're feeling anxious, you're on all of a sudden this desired thing that you've wanted, right? That you've fed and grown and nurtured is now upon you. It can be daunting. So raising awareness about this, first of all, I applaud everybody here to do that today, but also I would say realizing that there's really a lot of anxiety is very normal. Lots of thoughts that can range. And Angela, I know you have a good description of these kind of thoughts, so I don't want to take away your thunder, but I can personally tell you, sitting there holding one baby with another one running around, my children are close in age, saying like, what did I just do? And the highs and the lows, cycle. And so you can have really crazy thoughts that happen. And I would advocate for moms to really reach out, to speak up. And they could fill out their questionnaires and circle all the right things, but still have these overwhelming thoughts, and also just feeling that inadequacy while feeling sleepless. It's all a lot. And to Angelina's point, you don't recover in 6 weeks. It's life altering to take on, a newborn and a child, and whether you have another one or not, there's still choices about going back to work, choices about breastfeeding, bottle feeding, diapers, right? Like formula and breast, all of these things are coming at you fast and furious. And and I always say to every mom, you're never prepared. It does not matter. And
Yes.
every child and every pregnancy, right? Every pregnancy is different. So you may have done really well in one, postpartum, and then the next can be, overwhelming. And that can be for medical conditions too, right? One pregnancy, you don't have diabetes, the next you do, or vice versa. So getting to all this, really at the heart of the matter is what I love to tell people is speak up. And if you don't, speak to someone, whether that's a relative, whether that's hopefully your provider, but getting to that safe space to have those conversations, super important. Those are just, the beginning of what we need to be talking about.
Well, I think you perfectly said it. We spend so much time building that nest, planning for the pregnancy. And we've talked in our previous sessions, our fireside chats, about this, of what you do to prepare for the child. You have the nursery ready, you've got the diaper bag. But once that baby is on you and you just don't know what to expect. And I think that the stress of going home and not having, or for myself, our first child is our surviving triplet. And we spent 4 months in the NICU. So we had a routine when we went home. It was scary, but I had my child on a schedule at 4 months old, granted on oxygen, but still it was new then when I brought my rainbow baby home and had that different experience. Angelina, what were some of the things? I want you to tell us how you were diagnosed with postpartum depression and your kind of journey there. You ended up back in the hospital.
I did. I was actually, I don't want to focus on the doom and gloom, right? I want to just take a beat and remind moms out there and folks who are hoping to have babies and join this journey of motherhood and being parents, that it is filled with great moments. We want to set expectations and set the tone for what might be and what can be, what could be, what might be around the corner, just so that we're prepared, right? The whole goal is for us to step into this new role as parents and mothers and providers and caregivers, at being the best and having the most information and having the tools. That's what this conversation's about. So I'll just share with my journey. And that's the whole reason that I started this advocacy work, is because I felt unprepared. I felt underprepared by both my providers, my friends, my family. I felt duped. I felt lied to. I felt like everyone had this information and no one told me. I'm like, nobody told me I would be in diapers with the baby. No one told me that my milk could come out like a fire hydrant and cause gas to my child who does not know how to fart. No one told me any of this. So that is the reason why we're having these conversations today. I also think it's important that we learn from each other. And like Dr. Shiro said, that we have these conversations both in silos and in private, but also in public. And that's eventually why I started advocating for moms and advocating for this, for maternal mental health improvements and outcomes for moms and families everywhere. I was not diagnosed by my OBGYN. I wish that she had a scheduled follow-up visit for me after that 6-week checkup. But unfortunately, our system only allows for one checkup postpartum at 6 weeks. And at 6 weeks, yes, I was struggling. I was not sleeping, because who's sleeping at 6 weeks? I was still in a faja, and one of those girdles to suck the uterus back in. I was still not sleeping. My milk hadn't yet regulated. It was a lot, but the decline was progressing. And because my doctor didn't have an opportunity to see me again, she was not the one to notice and diagnose the problem. It was my therapist. And sadly, but fortunately for me, I had a therapist. I could pay out of pocket to go see someone to listen to, my emotions and work with me. But it was actually my doctor, my therapist, Dr. Carol Olson, who saved my life and diagnosed me with postpartum depression and anxiety and recommended I check into a psychiatric facility. So yes, I was hospitalized a second time. Only the second time was actually quite welcomed because I needed a break. And it was a welcomed break. It felt like an all-inclusive vacation to the Bahamas, the psych ward. I was like, oh, this is nice. You cook for me, you check on me. Oh, sign me up. How long can I stay up in here? But yeah, I was hospitalized, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't scary. It wasn't what you think a psych ward was like. It wasn't great, but it was where I needed to be. Thank you for asking.
And Angelina, what are some of the signs for people that might be watching this, wondering, what to look out for? Maybe I have this. I just had a child, in the last few months. What would you do? What are some things that they can look out for?
I'm an expert comedian, and I'm an expert in my own experiences. Dr. Shiro is the medical professional. But I know that a lot of times moms need to hear from other moms. So I'm happy to share what my experience was like. For me, the postpartum depression revealed itself the day I went for a walk. My husband gave me some time alone, and I sat at the bus stop in the rain and cried. And I didn't want to go home. It impeded my function. I wasn't able to return to work with the same vigor and joy and sort of energy that I had before having Ava, because I was so worried about my responsibilities at home that I couldn't focus when I was away. It was hard for me to get out of bed because I wasn't sleeping. So when I finally was in the bed, I was like, I'm not getting up. It was a cacophony of experiences and hell on wheels, to be honest. But, I had the support of my husband, thank God, who was he was the first line of defense for me. Unbeknownst to me, he was calling my therapist and relaying, updates on my well-being to my therapist and to my mom. So they were able to galvanize behind my back, thank God, but they were able to kind of huddle up together and support me the best way possible, which is why, Dr. Shiro said it's important for us to speak up to loved ones, but it's also important for loved ones to listen to the nonverbal communication, listen to the changes in behavior, the changes in patterns, the changes in emotion. It's important for everyone to be dialed in, checked in, and really ready to support mom in this new journey of motherhood.
Angelina, that was, a perfect description of postpartum depression as the depressed mood, the sadness, the overwhelming sadness, so much so that dysfunction happens. So you don't have enjoyment in other things. That's called anhedonia. So I love the medical terms but it's really that sense of like, I don't want to get out of bed like that description is perfect. There's sleep pattern disturbances, but you described it really well, like oversleeping or not sleeping, right? Which with feeding can be really hard to figure out what's normal and not normal. There's the thoughts, the intrusive thoughts that are persistent about harming yourself or others, your child, are really real. And if that's happening, we need to get that person help. So those are the things, and the anxiety around this, and it's normal to have a certain set of this, but then when it starts to really amplify, that's when interventions are needed. And there's lots of interventions that we hope, Angelina, that people don't end up in the hospital, but when they need it, and isn't that scary because they're getting the help they needed. But there is lots to do that we can do ahead of time. And that, providing the support from family and friends, but getting to a therapist, getting on medications is necessary. Some are perfectly acceptable with breastfeeding. Or maybe breastfeeding is so overwhelming that this is the root of all causes, right? And we have, because some people so focus in like, they have to ultimately do this, is the only thing they can do for their child. And we put such burden on our moms to do such exceptional care so quickly that we aren't doing that supportive. So it is galvanizing, the people behind you. I fear for the women who don't have that across our country. You mentioned that, we don't recover that quickly. So thrilled that, March of Dimes is really trying to advocate for that full year of, the Momnibus Act and getting Medicaid to support moms for a full year, not just 6 weeks, after they deliver. And I'm excited to see these states really turning around and doing that, because it matters where you live in this country, whether you live in one state which is right, you're just shaking your head there. And I'm like, guys, there's certain states that haven't approved this. And we really need to support our moms, because we know the health of infants is really relying on their health of their moms. And I really applaud you for being so open and honest about intrusive thoughts, because it is, I think, a conversation that doesn't happen so quickly anymore, or
Absolutely.
so open.
And Stacey, before I know you got to jump in, but I got to get on the
good.
intrusive thoughts. I got to get on to Dr. Shiro. I'm so glad you brought it up, because that was a critical part of what made me so afraid to speak up. Were the intrusive thoughts. Again, these conversations happen in silos, and we don't know if what we're feeling is normal, right? We're like, is this normal? Am I supposed to be in diapers? Is she supposed, am I supposed to feel like a bird might come in the window in the middle of the night and bite my baby out of the crib? Is this normal? And, intrusive thoughts are a part of the journey of motherhood. I've learned through my advocacy work that 70% of new moms experience intrusive thoughts. Yes, we should talk about them in safe spaces, but you are not crazy. They just lied, okay? Intrusive thoughts are normal unless, you're hearing voices and you're acting on the voices and things like that. Then maybe you should, maybe that's a medical emergency. That's postpartum psychosis. But intrusive thoughts, those weird random thoughts of you slipping down the stairs with the baby in your arms. So then you go to Home Depot and buy the strips to put on the steps so that you don't slide down like that, honey. That is intrusive thoughts. Okay. And yes, we should talk about them, but they are not an emergency. You're not weird. You're not different. You're not crazy. Okay. It's just a normal part of the gig. We care. So we're scared.
Perfectly said, Angelina. I think both of you, I think a lot of us, I know when I first went through my pregnancy, my triplet pregnancy, NICU experience, child loss, the whole, everything you could imagine that went wrong. I remember asking my therapist, when will I get over this? When will I get better? And she just looked at me and she said, you won't. Like, you will learn, you will figure it out, with the loss of a child, you will figure it out. And I do, but I also was able to figure out that it's okay to be on medication, and that it's okay to not be okay, and to talk about it. And I think that we've come a long way in society, and this was a decade ago, but I think that we really still have a long ways to go. And Angelina, I want you to talk about, you're hilarious, by the way, with just in general, we're big fans around our house, of you, but you have done some amazing things using humor as kind of a drive, and talk about that. And, you've had a whole tour for this advocacy.
Yeah, the humor is the gift that God gave me, and so is postpartum depression and anxiety. So I pool the gifts that God gave me, and I forge ahead. I think that, I just think that the humor is my secret sauce. Women want to feel prepared. We want to feel empowered. We want to be educated. We want to learn. We want to do our best. That's why we feel like we're failing, and that's why we're depressed. It isn't because we don't care. It isn't because we're checked out, and thankfully I can share my experiences and make people laugh. And, thankfully I've been able to help and implement some laws in California because of it. And now working with March of Dimes and Dr. Shiro with normalizing these conversations around the country, and working on the Momnibus Act, and along with the Preemie Act and so many other pieces of legislation, paid family leave. Can you imagine feeling depressed and anxious, and your partner has to return to work, or you have to return to work, and you're trying to navigate these systems and navigate your own emotions and your new role in life as a parent, and you don't have time off from work? Like, that's absurd to me, that in this country it's okay for a mom to go back to work with her uterus, with her daggone what's the thing, Dr. Shiro, your placenta in your hand. Come on now, like what come on, my stitches haven't healed. Yeah. 2 weeks. I worked with a company recently and just learned that they only allow 2 weeks off. Only 2 weeks of paid leave. That is criminal. That's criminal for a new parent. First-time parent, or whether you have 50 kids or one kid, that is criminal. Both parents need paid family leave. So I'm really passionate, as you can see. I'm really passionate about, giving voice to the reasons why these pieces of legislation are so critical to families around our country. And it shouldn't matter what zip code you're in. It shouldn't matter which state you live in. Like, these are just basic needs. Asking a mom how she's feeling, and giving her the Edinburgh screening, the screening tools for diagnosing postpartum depression and anxiety. Why is that not a requirement? Why is that just not basic decency that's required by our institutions? It's like, don't ask, don't tell. Well, if this mom's got postpartum depression or anxiety, I see that she's in here with tears and struggling and having a hard time, but I'm not going to ask because, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, or it just basic needs, and much of which is included in the Momnibus Act. So I'm happy to use my humor, my talent, my time to make sure that moms don't suffer the way I did.
And you are making a big difference in a lot of women's lives. As we start to wrap up, Dr. Shiro, what's something can you give us a few tips for someone that might be just getting home from the hospital, something to look out for, what they can look out for, or what, their spouse or significant other or any loved one? Because I think, as Angelina, both of you have said, it's so important to not only realize it yourself, but, to look out for others.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, Angelina, thanks for using your platform. That's really right, of being the voice, and I love it, because I think getting the conversation out is so important, which we're all doing here today. But I just want to thank you for what you've done and what you're doing and how you're partnering with us at the March of Dimes. But to your question, Stacy, moms come home, we've changed, like, providers need to be checking in with their patients, and if they're not within that first week, that needs to happen. And so families can help that as well. So to know that that's what needs to happen. And so, I think a lot of focus is on maybe a blood pressure check or something, but it's actually every mom needs that. And then the second thing is that, get to those appointments, because that actually can be super helpful. They can do that through telemedicine. We can do that, initial if need be, but really getting in to see those providers is super helpful. And then really being open and honest and talking through what's happening. And you're seeing your pediatrician too, because obviously the baby's getting seen. That's an avenue too, to really look at. And what's been sort of fascinating is that we're pushing pediatricians to start asking those questions of those moms walking in. And I think those are avenues that, and again, those are things looking for, the mood, the focus, which we know is going to be tough. We know there's going to be anxiety, but really trying to get their support out there. There's other things that we can be doing for our new moms, really having open and honest conversations about the thoughts that are going through, and that it's okay to be scared. That's kind of, that is normal. So normalizing the conversation is really important, but then realizing, when does it become scary? And so really thinking about harming yourself or others, your child, is a problem. And that's really where we've got to help, and we've got to intervene. So those are sort of the things that I would point out. I would also drive people to the March of Dimes website to take a look, because we've got a ton of information there that one could download or even just read about, even family members to read about at marchofdimes.org. Highly recommend that. Those would be the things that I would highlight for all new moms.
Perfect. And Angelina, I'll give you the last word. What's one thing you wish you would have known?
I think the main one is that it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel empowered. It's okay to feel the full range of emotions. And that includes fear and worry. That's a part of caring about something, that it's okay. And it's okay to have these conversations. These conversations need to start before we are mothers. They need to start before we are mothers. A huge part of my movement, of the postpartum revolution, and the work that I do with my bright pink bus across the country, is normalizing these conversations so that women can get help wherever from, be it from a girlfriend, a best friend, a sister who's been down this path before, a mother, a grandma, a provider, but we have to have these conversations. If we're not having them, it will just continue this perpetual cycle of feeling duped, like I did.
Well, thank you so much, Angelina Spicer and Dr. Elizabeth Scherow. Such an important conversation, and I have no doubt that someone's going to be helped because of your words. So thank you so much for taking the time. Of course, it starts with mom, as we've all said.
Yes, it starts with mom. Thank you.
I learned pretty quickly when I was in the hospital that, you can have a birth plan and you can have all these things filed away, but it rarely ends up going to plan.
Things escalated very quickly, and the doctors had to come in and perform an emergency C-section. Thankfully, everything went smoothly. It was a really heavy moment.
And happy Mama's Day. Every day is Mama's Day. Don't forget that.
Thanks so much for joining us for this fireside chat. This is the third of our 3-part series on putting moms first. So make sure to check out our other episodes on when we talk about what you need to know pre-pregnancy as well as during pregnancy. And of course, for more information and for important resources, head over to the website itstartswithmom.org.